Hey guys. How's
Hey,
everybody
Hey,
doing?
everybody.
how you doing?
Doing great. Got some more. This time, my son, bless him, came to help me clean out the storage building behind my house. So last weekend we got most of the stuff out of the storage closet to make room for hopefully where my freezer is going to go, so I can go in with my daughter and get a cow or part of a cow. And so this
Nice.
time we got out there early and got to sweat. And of course, he and his wife, actually, she came too, and they did most of the work. Bless them. I'm so grateful. But anyway, that's what I've been doing
That's
today. So
nice.
I've been finishing loading up the car with stuff to go to the Goodwill.
So do you already know where you're gonna buy the cow?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a place that's about maybe 3 or 4 miles from me, actually,
Nice.
going toward Mount Juliet. And it's pasture raised and everything. And so my daughter has mentioned it to me before about wanting to go in to either get a cow or half a cow. And we would have to do half a cow because I still don't think I would have enough freezer space to do a half of a cow. So we would need to do a
Yeah.
half together, if that makes
I
sense.
think a half a
Oh yeah.
cow is I
A
think a half
quarter
a
each.
cow takes like about 8 or so cubic feet.
Yeah, I don't
We
think
got
I'm going to have yeah, my freezer's not going to be that big.
Yeah. But there's guides online. Like if you Google like, how much space do you need to store, beef or whatever, that'll give you like quarter cow, you need this much cubic freezer
Oh,
space. So you can go and check it and that'll help you make a decision.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we
I
ended up
just
getting a
got a
quarter
new
cow based on the space that we had, but then we ended up buying a second freezer. So I think we could probably do a half a cow or maybe even more now. So
I just got a
hey,
new freezer, so that's pretty
oh,
awesome. Yeah,
nice.
it's larger than my other one, I think by about 4 cubic feet. And I had a big one before, but my dad bought it for us probably 20 years ago, maybe yeah, about 20, 22 years ago.
Mhm.
So it definitely needed to be replaced.
Yeah.
It's on its way out.
You can buy a chest freezer nowadays for
Mhm.
pretty inexpensive. So my whole thing,
Yeah,
like
this one was on sale.
we have an upright freezer that we spent a lot of money for, which is kind of our main one in our garage. And then we also in our garage have a chest freezer. And my biggest thing about the chest freezer was like, okay, I don't want to have to go digging to the bottom to find what I want. So my strategy, and we haven't used it yet for the beef, but my strategy is I'm going to be very organized and I'm going to sort my
Mhm.
beef according to the piece, and then I'm going to put pieces of each on each layer. So it's like I have layers, and each layer
Mhm.
has a selection of each cut.
See,
okay.
my ribeye layer would just be like all the way down to the bottom.
Seriously, if I could just get ribeye, like I want a quarter cow, but I want it to be all ribeye.
Yeah.
And that's
But
why I don't really want to get a cow because I don't think that I would. I don't know. I just don't think I would utilize it to the best of it. I wouldn't want to eat all those
we
different cuts.
we ended up eating everything, and and for, and so it actually worked out okay for us, and we found some cuts that we really enjoy that aren't ribeye. But
I mean,
yeah, I totally get that.
I definitely have cuts of that aren't ribeye that I do enjoy. Um, but there are so many that I don't enjoy at all.
Yeah.
Like I have discovered that without the potatoes and the carrots and onions and celery, I don't really like chuck that much. Like a chuck roast,
Oh,
Uh,
it's not my favorite.
I
Like
think
I can eat a little bit of it, but like once I eat it a couple times, I'm like, I don't want it anymore.
what I may end up doing with my daughter is because she is not carnivore, and so like she'll put the vegetables and stuff, and I'm hoping that maybe like with the various cuts, like ones that I won't eat, because like I'm mainly interested in like ground beef and various types of steak. Which I mean, that sounds picky, but I mean, she's a more versatile cook. and she eats a
Yeah.
more versatile diet. And so maybe she'll take the other cuts and, be able to cook things for her and my grandson that, I mean, I just wouldn't use. So maybe we can kind of compensate a little bit
Yeah.
back and forth
Yeah,
for
that's a
that.
good idea.
Well, and I know with the chuck roast, one thing I know Michaela Peterson has her like beefy bits recipe that she does. So she'll take like a piece of it, like a chuck roast, and she'll cook it down to where it's falling apart. And then she'll shred it and put it in her air fryer with beef tallow and make it really crisp, and it turns into a snack.
Really?
Oh, that sounds good. I would like that. I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's something you could potentially try. Like if you want to have a little chuck roast, but you don't want to eat the whole thing, that's something that you could do with the leftovers.
And then also, I don't know if this is a histamine issue or what, but I have noticed that sometimes chuck roast will upset my stomach.
Ooh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the complexities
All
of
right.
our bodies.
I know,
Yes,
right?
exactly. And we're all different, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell somebody else, oh, don't eat that much chuck roast. Your stomach's going to be upset, because that's not going to be the case for most
Right.
people.
It doesn't upset my stomach at all. And I'm like major histamine sensitive. But yeah.
Well, I wonder if it's because you're getting a fresh cow and I'm getting chuck roast from the grocery.
Oh.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, you may have more omega-6s in your chuck roast especially if it's not grass-fed, because grass-fed is.
I think it's probably a histamine issue rather than
maybe. Yeah, maybe it's not fresh enough.
I mean, they say by the time you get your meat from the grocery, it's like quite aged.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, all right, you guys ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Let's get into this.
All right. So we left off. So this is our third week trying to finish chapter 4. And I really have confidence that we're going to finish it this week and get into chapter 5. So, all right. So I have us leaving off on page 99, real-time tools. Is that where you guys we left off?
Well,
yeah, I had 100.
Yeah, we had kind of skipped around but real-time tools. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so she talks in this section about some different tools you can use to help you with your basically other things besides not just diet, but like sleep and activity and stuff like that she starts off talking about continuous glucose monitoring. And Kim, you're like the expert among the three of us on this, because
I don't think I'm an expert.
I've never used one.
Yeah, well, you're more expert than we are, because I've never done it either. And I know that she does, through her company Levels, she provides this service, and you can buy I guess the monitor through her and everything. But she talks about how important it is to actually, it's like a powerful tool that can help you understand how your body is responding to the food that you eat as far as your glucose. And she talks about like seven main benefits of using a CGM. So, I don't know, maybe we can take turns going through these if you guys want.
Okay.
So I'll go. The first one is improved glycemic variability. So that's kind of, obvious. Your glucose levels should be generally stable and should only rise slightly after meals. And that, she said high variability in glucose levels can damage tissues, lead to heart disease, diabetes, and metabolic dysfunction. So obviously, being able to see how your body responds to the food that you eat can help you decrease the fluctuations in your glucose, and decrease the percentage of time spent in severe variability patterns, which will lead to worsening metabolic markers. So that was her basic summation of what she said under that category.
Yeah.
So
okay, and the next one is reduce cravings and anxiety, which that's how appropriate, but it makes sense for me because, one thing that I used to struggle with a lot is anxiety. So that's why I said that. But basically what happens is when you spike and then come back down, it just really messes with your body. And it messes with your head. The glucose dips or reactive hypoglycemia can predict how hungry people will be later in the day. So that's another thing. People start craving foods. And in reality, it's not so much that they're wanting a particular food. It's just that their body is crying out for something because they've had that plummet in their glucose. And so they've had that reactive hypoglycemia. And so then she says that bigger crashes lead to eating more calories, which of course, just basically eating junk is the way I interpret that, because I don't really think, if you sat and ate more meat, I don't think it would affect you the same way that it would if you were just eating crap,
Right.
A pizza or something. So
I have a theory about something, and I wanted to interject it here because it's fitting for this.
Okay.
And it also kind of goes along with what we've seen from some carnivores who have had luck getting off of substances and stopping alcohol, cigarettes, things like that after they went carnivore. I think, and perhaps it may be a reductionist viewpoint and a little naive on my part, but I think that along this lines, I've lost my thought now. It's like literally mid thought and I've lost it.
That's happened to me before.
Oh my gosh. It literally during a live. I'm so sorry, guys.
Hey, it happens.
It had to do with what you were saying. And it was like, oh, I know what it is. Okay. So our cells are like seeking this stuff to fulfill them, to help them grow and be a whole human being. Right. And so sometimes I think we can mistake that seeking. We don't know if it's a hunger or we might mistake it for seeking a substance, is what I was trying to say before I totally forgot what I was saying. So, and the reason why I say this is because as someone with ADHD, which I also think is like a deficiency problem, and it has gotten a lot better, and I did get off Adderall. So I always felt like almost my whole life, I felt like this craving. I felt like I didn't know what it was for. And sometimes I would feel it with food. And I think that, that is my cells, that is my body just crying out for like nourishing food that I wasn't given, my body. I was given it junk and it can't build with that. And it just continues to. And the same thing with like processed foods. You continue to be hungry because you're not feeding your body what it needs. But anyway, sorry. Kind of got off track a little bit.
I think like springboarding off of that, I think that especially, at least I have spent my whole life pretty much as an addict when it comes to food, specifically sugar. But I feel like I agree. And I think that often we'll turn to something that's going to, instead of meet the needs of the cell, we'll just spike our dopamine and make us feel better, but not actually meet that need.
Yeah.
And so that's why.
And so then we're continuously seeking that,
Yeah, it helps for a little while, but then we have the crash and then the craving comes right back. And so we look for another dopamine spike and we're never really meeting the nutritional needs of our cells.
Yeah.
So, I was
that totally makes
like
sense.
That feeling. And I have often told my doctors, like, I even told one of them, I said, I feel like I want to smoke weed. I don't smoke weed. I don't do any drugs. Okay. But it's like this internal, just like craving, like you just feel like your brain is just not.
You're missing something and you want that.
You just feel like you're just like yearning for something like.
But our bodies do have,
and it's that nutrition.
Our bodies do have cannabinoid receptors in them. So maybe
I don't smoke weed regardless.
No, but
I'm just saying, like,
a lot of times receptors will receive more than one substance and can
Yeah.
interact with more than one substance. So maybe there was something else that would connect with those cannabinoid receptors that you are really needing and you're like craving.
I mean, it may not have been cannabinoid receptors that was seeking in me. I don't even know. Like that was the best explanation I could give them. And I guess I just threw weed out there because it was the most benign of like drugs, you know, but it was like my
You can't say
body.
I'm craving cocaine.
I mean, yeah, I didn't want to say that, right? It was like my body just like felt like it was missing something, and I can't even explain it.
I
If
felt
you've
that
never
before.
felt, if you've never felt what it feels like, also another good way to describe it is if you've never felt what it feels like to want a cigarette. I'm a former smoker. Okay, I
I am
quit a
too.
long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness. But it's that feeling. It's just like that. It's just like an itch you can't scratch,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that a lot of times what I was feeling was I'm not properly fueling my body. So I'm just wanting like, oh, maybe a Reese cup will do it. Maybe this box of, you know, graham crackers will do it, you know, and and then it was never scratched. And then you just want more and more and more.
Yeah. But the dopamine spike temporarily makes you think that it was satisfied.
Exactly.
Yeah. 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 Interesting point. Very good. You want to take the next one? Number 3?
Yes. So learn your reaction to individual foods and meals. Different individuals respond differently to the same food in terms of blood sugar rise, depending on factors such as microbiome composition, sleep, recent meals, and body type. Simply reading carb content or looking at a food's glycemic index is not sufficient to help you find a diet and lifestyle that allows you to maintain stable glucose. Chronic overnutrition is a key cause of bad energy that overwhelms our cells and causes oxidative stress, inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, glycation, and insulin resistance. CGMs can be useful in showing you the exact impact of a meal on your blood glucose levels. An extra large spike after a meal is a clear sign that the meal had too much refined grain or refined sugar and is creating a big stress of food energy for your cells to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's probably good to remind us that she's not a carnivore. So she's definitely talking to people who are eating these other food categories. So as a carnivore, hopefully you're not seeing the big spikes if you're using a CGM. Like Kim, when you were using your CGM, did you see any big spikes?
You know, when I saw the big spikes, when I made my coffee in the morning and added the Chalk Zero to it, you know, I would see spikes in things that, you know, were additions, never in the meat. The meat's consistent, you know.
And did that have stevia in it? Or some sort of
it's not stevia, it's I'll have to
sucralose?
look. I can't remember which one it is. I think it might be sucralose.
Okay.
But everybody in the low carb community has always, you know, said, oh, Chalk Zero is just so good. So I thought, okay. And we got it free at the keto conference, you know, at Keto Palooza. So I thought, well, it must be okay. No, it is not
Interesting.
okay.
Well, you know, when I think it just goes to show that before you start promoting something as being okay and healthy, it would be good to say, look, you may react badly to this. This may spike your blood sugar.
Yeah.
You know.
I definitely would not promote this to anybody as a low carb option. It's just, it's not. Let's see here. It's got non-GMO resistant dextrin, monk fruit extract, natural caramel flavor. I don't know like what that is. What is a natural caramel flavor?
Well, she talks a little bit, like I think in chapter 5, she talks a little bit. She just briefly mentions natural flavors as not really, they can contain chemicals.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it tasted good because it was sugar.
Yeah.
You know?
It's interesting.
And then it also has 9 grams of total carbohydrates per
Woo!
per 2 tablespoons.
Okay.
Which I don't know how much is in a
Whoa.
pump, but I was probably doing 2 pumps. So
Okay.
that was probably at least 2 tablespoons.
So you were getting some carbs
Yeah.
too, in addition to
Well,
those.
not only the carbs, but like just it's monk fruit is sugar. I mean,
Yeah.
and let's see, what did I say the other one was? Wheat or
There was
something
dextrin.
resistant dextrin. I don't know. They like to call it different names, but it's sugar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And your body treats it as sugar, you know?
Yeah. All right. Next one, this, number 4, which is a benefit. Learn how to use strategies to stabilize glucose. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, if you're watching to see how your body responds with the CGM, to your food, it'll help you avoid the foods that are causing spikes. So that's like super obvious.
Mm-hmm. Then next, she's talking about training the body to be metabolically flexible. And I mean, she mentions if the body is constantly getting fed glucose, then the body's preferential source, which is the preferential source to convert to ATP, it's not going to prioritize burning fat, which that's true. So she says, by learning to keep your blood sugar levels low and healthy enough through diet and lifestyle, we can increase the opportunity for our body to tap into fat stores for energy. So that does make sense there.
Yeah, and especially for us that we're wanting to be at ketosis, and we'll help you figure that out. All righty. All right, Kim, you want to take number 6?
Catch metabolic dysfunction earlier. Fasting glucose can remain low despite increasing insulin resistance as the body pumps out excess insulin to overcompensate for an insulin block. By viewing a continuous glucose curve on a CGM, we can see more subtle clues indicating early dysfunction, like how high our post-meal glucose levels are and how long glucose spikes take to come down to normal.
Yeah, that's definitely something that you can't really know for sure unless you're wearing a CGM. Is how long does it take to get back down to normal? It's supposed to be within 2 hours. And some people.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Yeah, because that's why we would check postprandial blood sugars, with patients, and it would be 2 hours. All right, fascinating new word. Dr. Boz was talking about Ozempic. Her theory was the reason some on Ozempic also get over addictions is GLP-1, which you can also increase through a proper diet. Oh, interesting.
Well, I know a lot of carnivores are, like I said before, they're getting over their addictions, or they're just not feeling that, that longing that I was describing. They're not feeling that as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you push through the withdrawal phase, it gets much easier. So yes, Dr. Boz had
Mike said
live. Okay. So seeking dopamine, especially in formative years, trains our receptors to seek the wrong things. This can apply to addictive food too. Yeah. That's got to be hard to retrain, but like it took me probably 3 to 4 weeks after going off carnivore to really kind of get through those sugar withdrawals. But then I feel like it took me maybe several more months to really feel like I was over the addiction, like completely over it, to where I wouldn't even notice sweets if I was around them, like didn't even faze me. And that was so cool when I figured it out. It's like, wow, I didn't even notice that I was around sweets all evening. And that never would have happened before, but that took several months.
I just kind of like trained my brain to look at it as poison, and that works most of the time.
That's good.
There are weak moments, though.
Except for your M&Ms.
Well, and for me, bread is synonymous with bloat. So I won't touch bread or pasta. Just won't. I just know that I look like I'm about 3 or 4 months, starting to get that little pregnancy pooch. That's what I look like if I eat bread or pasta.
Mm,
So it's like, So
interesting.
I find it much easier to stay away from those. Like if there is a cheesecake there,
We know how you are with
and,
cheesecake.
and awesome. And we'll, take a sliver of it. I just don't take it home with me. They always try to give it to me too. They say, "Oh, here, Carrie, you can just take this home with you." I'm like, "No,
Just
I
take that
can't."
home. Well, nobody's perfect, but we just do the best we can. And then some of us have to learn hard lessons through being stubborn, and that's okay too,
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that if I eat bread, I will regret it. So I just don't.
Me
I don't eat
too.
bread or pasta
Oh yeah.
anymore.
I used to
Yeah.
bread was my go-to, anything that was bread or starchy carbs and pasta. And
Yeah.
that was
Well, you know what I have found that really scratches that itch of the wanting bread if I ever do? And I don't really crave bread much anymore unless we go to like a really nice restaurant where they have like the good bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't ever want like sandwich bread or anything
No.
like that. But what really scratches that itch for me is I made some chaffles out of egg and cheese, and it was just like half a cup of cheese and then one egg, and it makes two chaffles, and to me it tastes like cheesy bread. It's
nice.
really good.
I actually got one of those little it makes the mini chaffles.
Yeah,
And they actually
that's what
call
I
them like
do.
mini waffle makers. And I think I got it at Kohl's, I think, and because it was a pumpkin, I got it for like $1. Because it
Oh,
was a
cool.
seasonal one, but I'm like, I don't care. But I just haven't used it
Yeah,
yet.
you
So
don't
I need
care.
my daughter raves about chaffles.
Oh,
I've
I
never
love
even
them,
heard of
and
truffles.
I'll even put pepperoni on it, and then close the waffle maker again, and it makes like this crispy pepperoni on top. So it's a carnivore meal as
Yeah.
long as you don't add like tomato sauce or whatever to it. But
Okay. So what's a chaffle? I've never heard of a chaffle before.
it's like a cheese waffle. So it's cheese and egg
Oh,
basically. Usually, and you
okay.
can add other things to them. Like some people will add almond flour. Some people, there's all kinds of chaffle recipes. But
Yeah.
the carnivore chaffle is cheese and egg.
Okay.
And Courtney Luna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she has. That's where I got that idea from her. It just looked so good. I tried it, and so it's like if I'm craving pizza or if my family's eating pizza, I'll do that.
And so you
And
make
it
it in a regular
totally.
waffle iron.
I make it in one of the mini, like the little mini. I can't remember what the name of them is. It's got some kind of brand name, but I don't remember it. But yeah, the little mini waffle iron, and that
Okay.
way it gets like really crispy around the edges, and it's so good.
Interesting.
And people use them to put like as buns to put their hamburgers in
Yeah.
and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
So so that you can make a bun. I've just never done it. And my daughter, she's one of these people that can just spot a bargain a mile away. And so she saw that little chaffle thing, but it was a pumpkin. But she was like, "Who cares if it's a pumpkin? You can make your chaffles with this," And I was like,
I
"Okay."
agree.
And I bought it, but then I haven't used it, so I'm gonna have to do that.
Okay, you're gonna have
the
to
only
do
thing
that.
I don't like about it is it's kind of hard to clean. You can't like submerge it, and the plates don't come off. So it's just kind of tedious to clean, but I only use it, every few months when I want that like cheesy bread,
So could you do the same thing, but like do it in a muffin tin and bake it?
It wouldn't be the same because that waffle iron really like just crisps it up, and
Okay, so it's the texture.
it's not quite the same. Yeah,
Okay.
it's combo. It's the texture, the thickness.
Okay.
It's not real thick, so it more resembles bread.
I see.
I don't know how it would come out in a muffin tin, but
Yeah. All right. Well, we're trying. All right. So we got one more of the benefits.
Okay, let's see. Motivate behavior change. Seeing real-time glucose data and the impact of meals and activities on glucose levels can motivate behavior change and encourage healthier choices, which can lead to better overall health outcomes. And so that would be true. And I am curious. I would like to get a CGM. I think I'm going to ask my doctor to order me one. I don't know. Have you all heard when they're going to be available over the counter? I've heard it's approved, but I just don't know when they're going to be.
Yeah, I don't know either. So if any of you listening know, let us know.
So I've got an appointment soon, and so I may just ask him if he will. I mean, I'll just tell him to use that abnormal glucose diagnosis again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And order it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what time is it? Okay, so maybe we should speed through the rest of this
Yeah.
because we can get to chapter 5. So she also talks about like the data that you can get, which is pretty, pretty obvious. You can, check your morning glucose. You can see if you're having the dawn effect, post meal, there's a whole bunch of stuff. You can see if you have reactive hypoglycemia, which is where you get these post meal crashes. You can check to see how stress impacts your glucose. So if you're if you're having a lot of stress and you're wearing a CGM, you can see if it spikes your blood pressure.
And real quick, let me interject. I did that not intentionally, but I looked at my numbers and I was like, what in the heck? I spiked up to like 150. What is this about? And I looked at the time and I'm like, I hadn't even eaten at that point. Where was I at? And I looked at my Kroger receipt. I was standing in line at Kroger and I had gotten 2 of these half price rib roasts. So it was the difference of like each one being 150 or being 75.
Oh, wow.
So I thought she was going to try to charge me the full 150 for it. And I guess my stress level spiked up and might have spiked my cortisol. I don't know how.
Wow.
It's just like a stress response. Wow. And I knew the exact timing because I had that time on that receipt. And it was just like, wow. If I didn't have that receipt, I would have been like, what in the heck was that? I wasn't even eating anything,
Oh,
but that's
crazy.
But, we discussed, Lynn, how sensitive my nervous system seems to be. And that's probably part of it. Who knows? Other people might not spike that high just because of that.
And so you wouldn't have known that if you hadn't been wearing the CGM.
No. And I had it down to the minute. Like I could correlate it to the minute because of that. Because on the time on my receipt, it was about 1 minute before that and it correlated perfectly. So.
Wow. I didn't know it could do that much of an extreme.
Yeah. I mean, it's a quick spike and then it's a quick decline, Yeah. It's not like it stayed up forever.
But you're ready to fight. You were ready to fight.
Yeah.
My fight or flight is like sensitive.
Obviously. Oh my goodness. Wow. So cool. So you can also check your impact of exercise on your glucose, impact of sleep.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that would be one that I would get dinged for because my sleep is not. I rarely even now get a full night. Now I am getting more sleep, continuous sleep, but I'm still not getting the sleep that I need. And I just am like just trying all these different sleep hygiene things to try to make it better. It's better than it was when my cat was still alive because I would have to get up with him and stuff, but it's weird. I don't know. But I have a feeling that the glucose would tell on me. During the night.
Cynthia says everyone has a glucose spike when stressed. It's a physiological response. Yeah, that's just what I was demonstrating. Yeah, absolutely. And then when people exercise too, it's the same situation. It's perfectly normal. Don't be stressed out at all if you go for a run and you see your CGM spike up because that's literally what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So no matter what diet you eat.
That's true. We want our bodies to be ready to react if we need to. It's just our modern society, we're too much in that fight or flight. Comes in handy if you have to fight or outrun a tiger. Well, that person at the cash register could have been equivalent, right?
Listen, I was ready to go. I was like, look, you're going to give me that.
That's right.
That sale price.
Right. Don't you try to charge me full price.
No, not today.
Not today.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so she also recommends food journaling, which is carnivores. Yeah, we don't really have to. I mean, we can if you're struggling to lose weight, or like if you want to lose weight, you're struggling to lose weight, or if you're still having symptoms, food journaling can definitely help. You know, if
Or
you
if you
know how to
introduce
interpret.
dairy, like let's say that you
Hmm.
decide, because
Yeah.
like I did, I had eliminated dairy for a while and I introduced it back. And of course, the first time I did, I mean, I ate too much, I think, and it just
Yeah.
caused a bad reaction. But the
I
thing is,
think
like,
that's
if
the
you're going to
problem with that.
introduce foods back in, then you can use
Yeah.
journaling to just know like how much you ate and when you ate it, so that you can track your symptoms that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So she talked about sleep here. And I think she's going to talk more about sleep in a chapter coming up, but she said that there's actually wearable sleep. Yeah, so there's wearable sleep and step trackers, which is like a smartwatch. Like I've got my
Mhm.
cheap $25 smartwatch, and it tracks my sleep, and it breaks it down, between all the different types of sleep on my app on my phone. So, um, yeah, so that's cool. So there's wearables that you can use for that. She talked about activity data, which
Mhm.
obviously, if you're tracking your steps, you can figure out. Um, let's see. Oh, one of the things she did before we move on to chapter 5, um, she did talk about heart rate variability, which I thought
Mhm.
was kind of an interesting. Um, and did she talk about a device to wear where you, or a test that you can get done? It's been a while since I've read this. But she said that heart rate variability is a biomarker that helps us understand the trends in our stress and strain levels, which we know impact our cells' ability to produce energy effectively. And she said counterintuitively, more variability in the time between each heartbeat is indicative of better health status and outcomes.
Hmm.
So I didn't know that. I mean, that was interesting because I know Kim in nurse is a nurse. They tell us to listen for the rhythm, like when we're listening to patient's heart, checking their pulses, right? They're looking for, they want us to listen to for a regular rhythm. I'd never heard this, that a heart rate variability like this, the amount of time between, I'm sure it's milliseconds difference, right? The amount of time between each heartbeat. It's better if
Mhm.
it's more variable. That was interesting.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
it was my understanding with this, it would be like, you know, if something happens, it's more responsive and it can go up real quick and then it can come back down quickly,
Yeah.
or, you know, that kind of thing. Is that what you understood of it? Or,
Yeah, that's kind of that you're basically you're she mentioned the whole system being more elastic, which is I think what you're
yeah,
describing. It's that
Mhm.
elasticity, the ability to quickly respond.
yeah,
Yeah. So you want fluctuations, exactly. So, I mean, in
Mhm.
working in cardiac, units in the hospital, we're looking at probably more on a macro level. Like we don't want a fib, but that's like a macro level change in rhythm. I think she's talking about more of a micro level
well,
change.
and that's a dysfunction of the atria, it's not
Yes,
necessarily the same as like just your rate.
right.
But what Cynthia said here, which is why your heart rate variability is higher if your BPM is lower, your beats per minute. So that's why when you get somebody in sinus bradycardia, where the heart rate's 40s, 50s, it's it will look irregular, but that's just
Mhm.
kind of normal for that rate. There's
Yeah.
more variability. I
You
can't
know
say
how
the
we were
word.
talking before about that, and I was just looking, and mine right now sitting here is at 57.
That's really good though. I mean, you
That's where my
guys,
heart rate
your
is.
all's, I think your all's heart rates are optimal. Mine is definitely, well, it's more optimal now. It's like 70s and 80s average. Um, and that's pretty average for most people. But
Is it
40
because like
can,
I've read different things and like we've even been talking like because you guys in the medical scenarios, have talked about like it can be depending on the circumstances, I guess, that a heart rate in the 50s can be either good or bad. And so
yeah,
I'm
it
wondering if
depends.
mine ain't too low, but
Well, I don't think it's too low because I think you're a really healthy person. You have to take that into, you know, you have to look at that because if you have somebody that's sinus bradycardia, they're either like an athlete or they're just super healthy, or they can have like
Yeah.
congestive heart failure, or they might be on a medication that's lowering that much,
mm,
Or then there's other people who just like that's just where they live,
Yeah.
There's so much like you can't really say, oh, that's healthy or that's not healthy. You have to look at the whole big picture,
So I'm looking at my app for that connects with my watch. And so like for yesterday, my resting heart rate was 62 and it gauges it on scale and it's right. It says perfect. So it says
Yeah, that's really good.
the resting heart rate is excellent in women aged, so it says my resting heart rate is excellent in women aged 56 to 65, which is my age range. But my average heart rate for the day was 85 and the range of, when I'm not resting was between 76 and 96. So it looks at
Yeah.
a variety of different things, but this is what she's talking about too, is these trackable things, which can really help provide some insight.
And Cynthia's right here. Like you know, if we're talking about people disease free, okay, in general, the lower your heart rate, the fitter people tend to have a lower heart rate.
Yeah.
And that's probably why mine greatly improved when I started eating, a proper human diet.
Right.
Just keto will get mine down to the 70s and 80s. I don't know what it is, and it may be just that chronic stress of having chronic candida. It's an indicator when you're above 100. For sure, it's an indicator like something's going on here. Like it might be something mild, but
Yeah.
something's going on here that the body doesn't like. The heart's not living.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah, I was a little bit worried about that because depending on what
No,
you
that's
do,
good,
it's,
Carrie. Don't
because
worry.
I'm not like an athlete, like I was interpreting like somebody being healthy. I mean, I am healthy, but I was just interpreting that as being like athletes who are like, they're buff and they're, I don't know, exercising like 2 or 3 hours a day. And they're very like maybe somebody that plays in the NFL or something,
Well, I
not
mean,
little old me.
there's a natural variation in
Mhm.
people, period. Like you cannot just look at a heart rate and say, oh, this person's healthy or not healthy.
Yeah.
And for looking at you, knowing what you eat, knowing what your health conditions are for the most part, I mean, it seems perfectly fine to me. But
Yeah.
that's just my personal opinion.
All right.
And
Yeah, I am not your nurse, right?
That's right.
Disclaimer. I'm a nurse, but I'm not your nurse.
So she
Yeah,
says, this is one
and
last
lots
thing
of
I want
people
to
have
comment
Hang on one
on.
second. One second, Lynn.
Oh,
Lots of
sorry.
people have heart rates in the 50s, period.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like normal, everyday people, whether sick, not sick, lots of people have heart rates in the 50s. Anyway, okay, go ahead, Lynn. Sorry.
So yeah, just one last thing that I kind of underlined in this section that I wanted to mention. She said low heart rate variability indicates that the gas pedal of stress and strain is too high and the body, particularly the vascular system, cannot relax.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of a good summation of like why the underlying reason for low
And
heart
then
rate.
not only not relax, but it can't tense up either because like look at people with POTS, people with orthostatic hypotension, they stand up and their heart rate's like, ooh, but their vasculature's not able to respond.
It's not flexible.
So yeah.
Yeah. And she did mention something called a Whoop, WHOOP, which is an innovative wearable that tracks heart rate variability, fitness, and sleep. So
I need me a Whoop.
I need a Whoop. I'd never heard of a Whoop before. Okay. All right. You guys ready to move on to chapter 5?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
I thought we would never get out of chapter 4.
I know. I think chapter 6 is going to be similar because it's long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But all right. So chapter 5, the 6 principles of good energy eating. I was a little mixed in my opinions on this chapter. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
Me too.
So
Yeah, and I try to keep an open mind because I don't think everyone needs to be carnivore. So just to clarify right up front, I do try to keep an open mind. But there were some things I even texted these two about it while I was listening to it. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think that this is so. Anyway, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
yeah. So you want to start and summarize? Oh, and Mike says chapter 4 is like driving through Texas.
Yeah. Or through Tennessee.
Ain't
If
that
you
the
go through
truth?
east to west Tennessee, Tennessee is a
Oh,
very
yeah.
long state.
Yeah. Or north to south
And
in
Kentucky
California.
also.
Yeah, north to south in California is pretty long too. Used to live there.
Cynthia says, whoop, it's more for athletes, in her opinion, not worth it.
Oh,
Thank you,
okay.
Cynthia. You always have such
Yeah.
valuable insight.
Yes.
We really appreciate it.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And then Amy says, yes, on the pot stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know that has to do with heart rate variability as much as like responsiveness of the vasculature, but I would say it's all kind of related, because your vasculature attempts to respond to your heart rate. And when it can't, that's when you really have some problems there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So she
All right.
has different principles, 6 principles of good energy eating. And the first one is food determines the structure and function of our cells and microbiome. So what are we gonna do, folks? We
I
can't
did
read
have
these.
some
These are
before we got
summarize
into the
it.
principles. I did have a couple things underlined that I was curious to know what you guys thought of.
Okay.
So page 116, the third full paragraph, she's talking about that she said, so you need to stop falling into traps of dietary philosophies and start breaking food into its individual parts and analyzing whether those parts are good or bad for our cells. I was a little iffy on this because I know that this is kind of a slippery slope. Like when we hear so often about how, okay, this food has this nutrient, so therefore you should eat more of it. And when you break the food apart and you look at its individual components, I feel like you can get really, like, you have to be careful because things work synergistically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like that the approach of saying, okay, well, we need to just analyze the individual parts of a food, you're at risk of missing those important synergistic effects of the food as a whole. So I don't know, is that just me or did you guys kind of wonder about that too?
So along those same lines, you can't very well just look at like a certain plant and say this plant contains this thing that can do this for you, because that's what the whole news and everything does with these studies, where like how much of that particular component of that plant will do that thing, like are we going to have to eat 20 pounds of it, that kind of thing.
Right. And that's where they end up adding and fortifying garbage foods by making us think it's healthy because like, oh, we added vitamin D to this, or we added this nutrient to this, but yet the food's still garbage.
Yeah.
Right.
And
There's
is
that,
it in
and
the form of vitamin D that you can absorb?
And yeah, exactly. And like Dr. Chafee talks about too, like, yeah, these plants may have these various phytonutrients and vitamins, but there are other components in those same plants that prevent you from utilizing those.
Yeah. And there's anti-nutrients that are actually toxic to our systems.
Yeah.
So I understand she's saying what she's saying, but I kind of sat wrong with me. Like She's
Yeah.
she's talking about a whole food approach to eating, but then now she's talking about breaking it down into this level, and it just didn't sit right with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel the same. And there again, like you guys, I want to keep an open mind because I like to learn, and
Hmm.
she offers a lot of valuable information. At the same time, it's like what you were saying, Lynn, about if they add vitamin D or they add this, like milk being fortified with vitamin D, it is fortified with it. And, everybody thinks that, oh, milk just has a lot of vitamin D in it, but that's not true. If you look on the jug that you buy at the grocery store, I can't
Yeah.
really speak for the kind that you get from the farm, farm fresh, but it's fortified with vitamin D. And so you're saying that you can take a nutrient, I mean, to focus on a nutrient that's a single one versus, I don't know. It doesn't, I agree with you, Lynn. When you isolate it like that, you're not taking into consideration how it works with other nutrients, good or bad, that's in that same food.
Mm-hmm.
And with
Yeah.
meat, it just seems to me, and I mean, here, carnivore, like meat, eggs, things like that, those things are just more, they are things that are the least inflammatory to people. I mean, most people I know of that do eat meat that haven't been deciding that they were going to eat a specific diet for other reasons. But meat doesn't, you don't hear somebody saying, oh God, my stomach's killing me because I ate this meat. It's usually some other food that they ate that bothers
Yeah.
them. Like some people, it's salads, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
raw vegetables. And that's the same with me. But,
Hmm.
so it's, yeah.
And you're
I
not going to
agree.
get the seed oils, and you're not going to get any of the glyphosate. No pesticides are going to be on your meat.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And fiber, honestly, I mean, in all the years I worked as a GI nurse, the vast majority of people felt worse when they ate a lot of fiber,
yeah.
and it causes bloat. It,
My husband feels worse when I eat a lot of fiber
when you eat a
because
lot of fiber,
he has to lay next to me in
because of
the
what's
bed at
coming out on
night.
the other end,
He's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "All those rotting vegetables that everybody tells me to eat. It
yeah,
doesn't
I
work
mean,
for me."
it produces a lot of gas and bloat, and people are not necessarily comfortable, but yet that's what's recommended is, make sure you're
Yeah.
getting plenty of fiber. So, okay, so I just wanted to go through and talk about
Oh
that.
wait, Proud
Yeah.
to be Weird has a she says that she actually changed her ideology because she was completely plant-based like 2 years ago. So maybe she's evolving in her opinions.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, she did say that she was, sympathetic to the vegetarians and the vegans because she used to be
Yeah.
vegetarian.
So that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And we know from the carnivores who spent years as vegetarians that they will often say that initially they saw a benefit because, of course, they're getting the garbage
Yeah.
out of their diet, but then over time they ended up having a lot of problems
Mhm.
and didn't feel well. And
Yeah.
so maybe she'll get to that point where she realizes that too.
I think it is. It's a
So,
journey for everybody. So
yeah.
she may work her way to that point.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just looking real quick before we go on. Amy said, in POTS, your veins can't do their job well enough to keep the blood moving. So if you sit with your feet on the floor, the blood pools there and you get dizzy. You can get blood clots in your legs plus more. Yeah, that was kind of what I was talking about. Like the vessels have to be able to constrict and expand,
Right.
depending on what you're doing and depending on how they need to move. Think of the heart like a pump because it is. They have to be able, that garden hose has to be able to clamp down or expand to make sure that enough blood, but not too much blood, gets pushed through your heart at once. And that's kind of what I was talking about. But yeah, Amy is dead on there.
And that's an autonomic nervous system malfunction.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like somebody who has peripheral vascular disease where they actually have damaged valves,
Yeah.
because your veins have little valves in them that move the blood back up to your heart, and those valves can be damaged in peripheral vascular disease. But POTS is different. It's an autonomic, it's your nervous system that is not stimulating the proper contraction and relaxation of your vessels.
But why, and can
Right.
you fix it with food? And I think you can. I think you
My
can greatly, maybe not
yeah.
totally fix it, but greatly improve it.
Well, my
and then
orthostatic hypotension is improving. And so
awesome.
maybe it takes a little while, but I'm definitely seeing it's improving for
Yeah.
sure. And you can't not exercise though. Exercise, you need to do it even though it's challenging.
I need to do more of that. I really do.
Yeah.
Mike says Dr. Means makes a great case for more fiber for gut biome. She's not anti-keto carnivore, but she's not against plants either. She had a nice talk with Dr. Chapey about all of it. I will have to watch that.
I will too. I didn't know that.
On that note, so your fiber makes butyrate for your gut, which you need. Okay. Now, if you're keto or carnivore, you get that butyrate from not eating sugar. Your body produces, makes ketones.
She talks
beta
about
hydroxybutyrate.
Yeah, she talks about how our liver
is
produces
kind of like, so that was like what she talked about in chapter 5 towards the end was how, we're getting that regardless, and it's by a different means, but it's the same kind of thing. So that's why we don't need fiber. I mean, we don't have to have fiber. Well, my opinion, just saying.
And honestly, if you listen to Bart K talk about the gut microbiome, he will be, in his own Bart K way, very adamantly talk about how we really don't know what a healthy gut microbiome is.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's
so
kind of
new.
It's kind of like lab values. You're looking at what's normal for the population, but does that mean, I mean, you're looking at it like you said, we talked about when we were looking at my lab values before, you're talking about a sick population, right?
Yeah.
So is that really what's normal and healthy or not? I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I mean, if that's what their basis is, I like average, meaning just this is what the average person has, and I want optimal. I don't want, I want healthy, whatever healthy is.
Yeah. Well, and everyone has a little different gut microbiome, and it can vary depending on like where you live and the foods you eat. We know it's very flexible, right? It doesn't take very long for it to change if you change your diet. And so there may be like multiple thousands, millions of functional gut microbiome, compositions that we're just, I think it's an area of study that's still really fairly new.
Oh, definitely. Barking Squirrel says butter contains lots of butyrate. So eat your butter, folks. I love that little picture. It's so cute.
I know. It's adorable. It's adorable.
Okay. All right. So who wants to go to principle 2?
Okay. Oh, wait, let me look through. I had a bunch of things that let me make sure there's nothing on principle 1 that we didn't really talk about it. Let's see. It talks about it.
Did we not?
No, yeah. You've read the title, and then I interrupted you.
I read the title.
And then I interrupted you and went backwards.
It's okay. We do this. We like to bounce off each other and go back and forwards. It's okay.
Yes. So let's see. So she talks about the food determining the structure and function of our cells and membranes, that they're the bricks. We call them often building blocks, right? She calls them bricks. And let's see. She talked about adjusting the dietary intake of omega-3s and omega-6s and can change the membrane ratio in as little as 3 days.
Wow.
As cell membranes turn over rapidly. And of course, as we've learned from many books, is that it's important to have more omega-3s, quite a bit more omega-3s and omega-6s. And omega-6s are predominantly, you're going to get those if you're eating seed oils and the garbage food. You're going to be inundated with omega-6s, which are pro-inflammatory, whereas omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. But she talks about more than just being structural bricks. Food's also a signaling molecule that directs key function in cells and overall body, including how our genes are expressed. I thought that was interesting because she talked a little bit earlier about that our genes don't determine most health outcomes. She says, what we eat and how we live impact our gene expression and cellular biology, determining our outcomes. So I've heard so many times people talk about like, well, genetically, I mean, I have this disease or I have this, chronic illness because it's in my genes. It's like, my family has it, but she's saying no, that genetic expression is unlocked or locked based on what you eat.
Yeah, and that's about that's epigenetics, right?
Yeah.
Which means above the genes. So like you're born with this set of genes, but which ones are switched on or switched off depends on what you do, what you're around, what you're exposed to, what you eat, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And she talks about, benefits of cruciferous vegetables to help combat oxidative stress.
Oh, I'm sorry to laugh, but y'all, I just had this thought that I had to text to these two lovely ladies during reading this, but go ahead, Lynn.
Okay, now I got to check my text messages, which I didn't get yet. It just reminds me how often, when I was working in GI, we would tell people to avoid cruciferous vegetables because they're so gas producing. And people would be often so uncomfortable eating cruciferous vegetables. And I kind of think like, as she's talking about, okay, well, these vegetables are good. They can help combat oxidative stress. Okay, so what about figuring out why you're having the oxidative stress instead of throwing vegetables at them? Like maybe some of the other foods you're eating and maybe, might be contributing to the oxidative stress.
So let me read what I texted to these ladies. I said, oh, wow. In chapter 5, where she is saying that what the specific foods say to our cells, what the cruciferous vegetables say to the DNA. And what she said was, they say to the DNA, it's a tough time and we must produce more defensive. I said, wow, I don't think that came across how she intended to me anyway. To me, it says if we're eating them, it's a tough time and our body is in a defense mode, not a relaxed, natural fed state.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that means like if you're having to eat that stuff, the meat is scarce, and your body should be like on its defense.
Right.
But, I might have read too much into it. I'm sure that's not how she intended it.
I don't think she meant it that way at all.
It was just interesting.
But you know what? I agree with
how
you,
she
though.
went down each one.
Yeah, because she's talking about it. Our DNA is saying these things. And I think that I agree with you. Mm-hmm. I think that if we're in our more ancestral way of eating, if we're eating cruciferous vegetables, it's because meat is scarce and where our defenses are up. It's not that, we need to heal those, we need to use the cruciferous vegetables to help support our natural defenses. I don't think that that's really, I mean, mm-hmm. I wouldn't approach my eating that way for sure. But let's see. So I actually put next to the section on page 121, the very last paragraph where she talks about fiber, all I put in the margin was no.
And we may have some confirmation bias going on here too, y'all.
Maybe a little bit. But speaking from experience though, I mean, I can just say that when I've eaten this fibrous stuff that's supposed to be good for me, it has made me feel worse. Bloated and constipated and just not.
I mean, I spent so many years working as a GI nurse. That's why I put no, because she talks about fiber, and she says, basically eating it allows for a robust gut lining, which minimizes chronic inflammation. And that's where I put no. I work with so many hundreds, thousands of probably not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of patients over my years as a GI
Yeah.
nurse. Fiber did not help them feel better.
Just the
And
opposite, actually.
I can remember it. Of course, this was before I was carnivore and I was still in the GI nurse mode, listening to all the GI doctors and having patients push back. And when when I'm talking to them about fiber and pushing
Yeah.
back and saying, look,
Mm.
it makes me feel worse. And so I do, what the doctors would say, well, maybe it's your ratio of soluble versus insoluble fiber. It was never, unless they had an acute flare of Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, or they were dealing with diverticulitis at the time. It was never, well, let's just stop the fiber. It was always, well, let's just tweak the ratios. And,
But in the wild, would our ancestors say,
Oh,
"Oh, honey, I think my ratio of soluble to
right,
insoluble fiber must be off. What shall I
right.
do?"
yeah.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
hilarious.
That's why this didn't resonate with me at all, because it's like, okay, yeah. So yeah, no, that was a big old no for me. You do not
And to be
feel
fair, like I think collectively we think that Casey Means is amazing and she's doing great work. And like this is absolutely no criticism to her at all. It's just like a different viewpoint,
Mhm.
she's trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
Her
Yeah.
thinking, I don't think she's arrived yet. But what
Yeah.
she's sharing is definitely better than eating garbage food. She's definitely
Yeah.
making it really clear, don't eat the
And
garbage
she's
food.
super intelligent. I mean, she knows so much.
Well, and she
She
does
breaks this
have
stuff right
science
down.
behind why you wouldn't, like the
Yeah.
processes that are interrupted when you eat that bad stuff.
Yeah. But
She
she's an
does.
ENT surgeon. She's
Mhm.
not a
Yeah.
gastroenterologist. And so
Yeah.
I guarantee that her training in GI is not like probably less than mine with the years I worked in GI.
Hmm.
And didn't probably her experience with GI patients is very, very limited, because it's most of the time when a GI patient is seeing an ENT doctor, it's more upper GI issues because they're trying to figure out, are your throat issues from an ENT problem or is it a GI problem? I doubt very seriously she dealt with anybody with colon problems or small bowel problems. And so I know just from firsthand experience with these patients that they are not happier with more fiber, and it definitely does
Yeah.
not improve their gut.
Same. I've seen that firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So not that I'm going to like challenge her on a live stream or anything, because I'm sure she could talk
No.
No,
circles around
I'm
me.
just trying to say like we are really supportive of the work that she's doing, just because we don't necessarily agree on every aspect.
Right.
I wouldn't want her to think that we were being critical of her. It's just like we've experienced something different. Put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. And even with the GI map test the stool test that I had done, and it showed, my naturopathic doctor was concerned about that my low levels of anti-inflammatory bacteria. And I told him, I said, well, maybe I don't need all those anti-inflammatory bacteria because my inflammation is coming down. And so, they're looking at these
That
standard
makes sense.
ranges and going, well, you need this much anti-inflammatory bacteria, but what if you're not eating inflammatory foods?
Well, what if the bacteria are just there because you're inflamed?
Right. Right. And there's just this kind of acceptable normal range of inflammation that we just tend to generally accept in society.
Mhm.
And I just don't need all of those anti-inflammatory bacteria.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all righty. So you guys want to go on to principle 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So principle 2, eating is the process of matching cellular needs with oral inputs. And this was also, just like you mentioned before, Kim, and I actually wrote a comment. She talked about, she's talking about supplements, like, your body, your body may need more magnesium, or your body may need more of this particular nutrient or that particular nutrient. And I wrote a comment, our ancestors didn't take supplements. So why do we need to worry about this nowadays? Like, just like you were saying, like they didn't know. People like with fiber, but same thing with nutrients, like matching our nutrients with our cells' needs. How can we ever really know that? So the solution that most nutritionists and dietitians give is, well, eat a really well-rounded diet, and then you're going to be
balanced diet.
A balanced diet. Right, exactly. And then you're going to hit the target without really trying.
Yeah.
But unfortunately,
aim at nothing and you'll hit it every time.
Seriously. I mean, if you basically take an automatic weapon and just kind of like shoot it all over the place, you're going to eventually hit the target, right?
You'll hit something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see, and Dr. Berry talks about this as well. I mean, I keep invoking the name of the great Dr. Berry, but I just admire him so much, and he's taught me so much.
Me too.
But he does talk about the fact that, and she talks about this, about the depletion of the soils and everything. So I agree that like the daily minerals is something that no matter what your diet is, you need that, because they're just not there in your food unless you just know that you're truly getting something from a regenerative farm where that the nutrients are there. But like he was talking, I heard him on a live stream. I was listening to one, I don't know, it was a couple of days ago, but anyway, he was talking about like drinking out of mud puddles and, streams. Of course, we can't do that now because we don't have the correct bacteria in our stomachs to do that. But I mean, you can get the same minerals if you did that, but you really wouldn't want to because
well, so many people are on acid blocking medication, and you're bringing your stomach acid down, and you're opening yourself up to not being able to kill any of those bacteria before they get deeper into your system.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
so I can understand why you would need to supplement with some things, or I can see why you might need to supplement with some things to get up to a certain point to where you're sufficient in those, and then you stop because you're getting what you need going forward from what you're eating.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to figure out like the best sources. I know that organs, liver is very, like she even talked about how liver is a really good source of the minerals and vitamins that we need. We know egg yolks are extremely good. And so figuring out like why, like if we are deficient, what do we need? What are we not eating? That's
I
providing.
made myself eat some of those cod livers the other night. I love my sardines, but man, eating those cod livers is just, I make myself eat them at least every other week. And sometimes I can get them down better. And like this time I actually did get them down better. It wasn't that bad, but boy, the time before last when I ate them, I was like,
so I've
never tried to eat cod livers before.
I like the oil. The cod liver oil is actually good. They're packed in their natural oils. They're Icelandic cod liver.
Okay.
It's the ones that Dr. Berry talks about. So I order them off of Amazon.
Yeah.
And so I'll eat a 10 about I was going to try to eat them every week, and I've not been anywhere near consistent with that.
Well, I remember my dad telling me, I mean, my dad was born in 1926. I mean, he's no longer alive, but he told me growing up that there was 8 kids, and his mom would line them up and pour out a tablespoon of cod liver oil and make sure that they had their cod liver oil. That was just the way they did things. And so
they knew something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they knew. I think they knew a lot more than we know now. And
it's almost like we've forgotten how to properly feed ourselves.
We got too smart for our own good. I mean, it's like we just think that we're just above all this primitive stuff,
I mean, only humans would think that we could create our own foods, just just like, let's just make our own foods instead of getting what's natural. Let's
Mm,
just
Yeah.
make it. That won't, it shouldn't cause any problems at all.
Right.
right.
Right. It's the industrialization of our society and, and we're still doing it. I mean, now there's
Yeah.
the, impossible meat,
Ugh.
and those crazy burgers that Bill Gates likes to promote. And I don't know why. I mean, have you tried one of those like before you were carnivore? Did you ever try?
My
No.
brother tried one and he said that it was like eating, and this was before he went almost carnivore. He said he tried one, like one, I think it was one of the Impossible Burgers. I think, I'm not sure. It was at a restaurant, is all I know. But we were actually talking about this a couple of days ago, and he said it was like it had all the other accoutrements that the burger normally comes with, except for the patty was, of course, the fake meat. And he said it just tasted off to him, like
Yeah,
it didn't taste
exactly.
right.
Yeah. I mean, I had one of my really good friends is a vegetarian, so she had me try the veggie burgers like probably 20 years ago. And at the time I thought, oh, yeah, if it's meatless, it must be healthier, right? So I tried them and they were disgusting.
And
So,
that's when they were more bean based.
mhm.
I like those better than the Impossible Burgers. They're
I've never tried the other
they're
though,
still
so
not great. They're still not great, but I like them better because they're at least more whole foods based.
mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
I don't know how much
What
grain.
are the Impossible Burgers made out
I
of?
don't know, but they just taste different. They don't taste.
Yeah.
There's something off, like you said, Carrie. There's something off of that. They taste a little more synthetic in my opinion.
Mhm.
And just, yeah, I don't know. Like they're trying to be meat, but they missed the mark.
Yeah.
So, all right. Are we not going to get through chapter 5?
Probably not, but that's okay.
So, yeah, that's
It's our
okay.
book club. We can do what we want.
That's
Right?
all right. Yeah, that's all right. I
I
mean,
love the discussion, and I'm learning so
Yeah.
much.
I think I have had comments from people that have said that they actually like the discussion amongst us just as much, if not more, than the actual information in the book. So
good.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it too because I mean, isn't that the whole purpose, right? We're trying to
Yeah.
learn.
That's the whole purpose of a book club,
Yeah,
you read and then you discuss.
and bounce ideas and thoughts and yeah. So, all right. Well, you guys want to kind of stop maybe here, Principle 3, and pick it up next week?
Works
Yeah,
for
that's fine with
me.
me.
Okay. Do you
All
want to
right.
try to scoot into chapter 6 and or do you
I
want to just finish
mean,
chapter
let's
5?
see here. How much is left in chapter 5? Because I feel like we've got a lot left in chapter 5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think
we can just finish chapter 5 next week and then
Okay.
chapter 6 is long.
And so then we'll make that the next week. And
Mhm.
I'm sure we can find something to talk about, that's carnivore, keto, proper human diet related if we run
Absolutely,
out of material.
absolutely. So, yeah, chapter 6 is super long, although some of it is like it's about food, so it'll be interesting. So,
Oh, Barking Squirrel says, yeah, I love the discussion. Thank you.
good, and we love
We
that
love that
guys
you
are
come every
here.
week, and we
Oh,
like to see we see our same people every week, and I absolutely love that because
me
you guys
too.
are very dedicated,
Yeah,
and we kind of get to know you just a little bit, so I like
yeah,
it.
and you're all smart too, which I love.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Great
everybody adds.
contributions.
I don't know if you guys are reading the book or not, but you guys always add to the discussion, and you're very intelligent, and we appreciate you.
Yep, we sure
Absolutely,
do.
absolutely. And I wanted to just before we sign off, I don't know if any of you guys that are listening were in Carrie's live stream or saw Carrie's live stream last night for on Homestead How, where we introduced the Healing Humanity documentary team. And I wanted to kind of throw out there, we have a new membership site. We're building it. It's close to completion, but we were recruiting basically a beta test group to help us basically like load the site with content, but also test it out and provide us with feedback on little things that maybe aren't working before we launch it. So we have a code out there, a coupon code that we put out there for 100 people to use. And I think we have maybe about 25 left.
Okay.
So it's healinghumanity.life. And I'll put that in the.
And what is it?
So Healing
What's the site
Humanity,
for?
the site is healinghumanity.life. Okay. And then the coupon code is HHB1.
But what's it for?
And so it is going to be for a free membership during the trial period, which is minimum 30, possibly 60 days. And then we've also discussed that we will probably, for those of you who join the beta group, the testing group, we will probably end up offering a lifetime discounted membership. So the regular membership is going to be $30 a month. And I think we're going to probably offer the test group like a lifetime of $10 a month.
And what do you get with the membership?
So it's a fully functional social media site. So we've got, we've got all the stuff you would normally get on a social media site. We also have, we have a lot of groups. So we have like a group for each of the diseases that's being covered by the documentary. We've got locals, a really good locals group. So you can drill, like meet people in your own state. And I can even add groups that are more even local. So if you have, like, say you live in Texas is a big state, right? And so we'll end up creating subgroups, like maybe a Dallas Fort Worth subgroup, a Houston subgroup, San Antonio, etc. We can do that all over the world. We have courses, which I'm working on. We're not available yet, but I have courses, classes, online classes that you can go through. And there's going to be more. I've got 3 of them right now. We've got several that people are working on that are going to be added. We have live streams. We're going to having the carnivore doctors that are going to be on. We've got Q&As with Carrie and Adam and the different team members regarding the documentary. Carrie's probably going to be showing things within the site about like footage and things that they've been filming that will not be accessible to anybody else off of the site. Yeah. And so hopefully we're
kind of like similar to what's on YouTube, only with courses and connection groups, so that you can find local
community
people.
Yeah, it's really trying to get you really connected in the community.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and hopefully it's going to be really easy to facilitate local meetups through the group, because you can book events within the groups. So it's going to be an evolving thing. We're learning all the functionality of it, but it's we're in the infancy stages of the group, and so I'm one of the administrators as well as Adam and
I just joined.
I'm gonna
using your coupon code.
Yeah, so definitely appreciate anybody that will come and join us and give us feedback and help us build the site. And part of it, just like if you start a new Facebook group, it has no content in it, right? So one of the things we're hoping is to like build the content, like communicate, share information, and start building the content, because ultimately, once we have the documentary out and it reaches hopefully millions of people, we want to have really good content already there and really good people there that are going to be able to support and help the newbies.
So I have a question. Okay. Yes. And this may be more of a Carrie question, but I'm just going to ask you because you're highly affiliated.
That Carrie or Carrie?
No, like Carrie from Homestead House.
Okay.
So, the movie is called Healing Humanity, Power of Proper Human Diet. Well, a proper human diet is more than just carnivore.
Yeah.
So is this going to be more than just carnivore, or is this going to be specifically carnivore?
Yeah, it's going to be more than just carnivore. So Carrie Mann has
Uh-huh.
kind of metamorphosized. Like originally he was just like, oh my gosh, carnivore. Like he literally thought of doing this documentary within maybe the first 3 months of him being a carnivore.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
yeah, it was early on. And so, but as he has learned and interviewed so many people, he's
Uh-huh.
definitely expanded his understanding of the proper human diet and
Yeah.
understands that it's not always carnivore for everybody, just like it's not always lion diet. Like some people need
Yeah.
a lion diet, some people are okay on a ketogenic diet, but everything is going to be basically meat based and under that ketogenic
Yeah.
umbrella. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's and see that aligns with I don't even want to say my thinking or my beliefs or anything like that. It's more of like the natural conclusion I've come to after studying this stuff for well, studying specifically carnivore and meat based for over a year now, but studying the ketogenic diet for, many years,
Yeah.
probably gosh, 6 or 7 years. So that's kind of where my thinking, my leanings are going, and I don't like I am carnivore nurse Kim, right? That's because I want to find my people. If I could
Yeah.
be, PhD Kim without feeling like I've ripped off Dr. Barry, you know what I'm
And we
saying? Like,
do
or like
have
I'm using
Dr. Barry's
100%.
permission to use the terminology for the documentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know you guys do, but like it would be weird for me to, call myself that because I would just feel like I was
sure.
stealing his,
Sure.
I don't
And
know. I think that's what everybody should call it though, but
yeah, and Carrie is
it's such a good
definitely, he
name.
now sees it as a spectrum as far as
Yeah,
the proper
I think
human
so.
diet. And the real push in for him, sticking to carnivore is really important because,
Yeah.
for his body. But he definitely understands that there are people who can be perfectly healthy and incorporate some other foods.
Yeah. And
Okay, I
I
signed
think
up
that's the
too.
way we
Sorry, I was being
oh
like
good.
rude, but I wanted to make sure that I did because otherwise I would forget and then I
Mhm.
would regret it.
I
So I'm
think that's the way that we do a lot. We will get really like dogmatic about one thing because we have discovered that it works and it makes us feel so incredibly good. And then
Right.
we're like, okay, let's not quite be so rigid. Maybe there are people who, maybe their proper human diet involves this and
Right.
then it's individualistic, like
Right.
it's different for me, it's different for you, it's different for everybody.
Yeah. And then everybody needs to figure out what's best for them. And I'm definitely a proponent of, you know, being as flexible as you can
Yeah.
and still help, you stay healthy. Yes. Yes. You can join
Yes,
even
my
though you eat fruit.
listen, they need your levity over there. They need your
They really
your
do.
humor.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're meat based and you obviously you're here listening to us, so you must be meat based, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who are carnivores that do eat some fruit.
And
And if you're
there are people who try really hard to do a carnivore diet, and then sometimes they are not on a carnivore diet, but they're still listening in. Like I've
Mhm.
talked to several people over, the last year that they were like, "Well, I'm just trying to get back on track," and but it's like they're still hearing the message and they're still taking that information in. So that's really what's important. You want to make sure that you educate yourself so that when you make that decision of whether or not to get the M&Ms or not, it's an educated
Or the
one.
cheesecake.
Exactly. It's an
Yeah.
educated decision, and you can make that decision for yourself. Nobody's in a church here.
Yeah, we're all on
not
a
not
journey
this
or
is not the church of carnivore. This is
no,
just
Right.
no.
our
And just
experiences.
right. And just like we have vegans and vegetarians who are very ideological, and that's not and they can get pretty scary sometimes. We don't want to do that
No.
on our end of it.
I mean, there are some pretty dogmatic people on our end too.
There
I
are.
have to
There
say,
are.
it's just like anything. You get people who are just like they feel so strongly about it, and a lot of times they feel so strongly about it because it's been so powerful in their life.
Right. Right.
So
Exactly.
it's understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely we've got the book. We've got the book that Amy and I wrote. Some of the proceeds of this book are going to the documentary. So this was advertised last night too during the live stream.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we also have a second book that just got published. I don't have my copy yet, but it's going to go to support Dr. Berry's American Diabetes Society.
That's awesome.
And it's really cute, and it's a story, and it's actually his kids are the main characters, and
Dr. Berry's kids?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Bonnie and Beckett, and I created
that is awesome.
I created the characters, and they look similar enough that he'll recognize them, but and so it's a story. So this one that's going for Healing Humanity is a comic book, activity book, and coloring book.
Oh.
And the one that's going to
we got to start them young,
Yes.
Right.
The one that's going for Dr. Berry is just a storybook without the activities. But yeah, it's very positive, and it's creating, the beef, bacon, butter, and eggs are superheroes. They're the superhuman power foods. And so it's hopefully going to help children want those types of foods, because those are the superfoods. And yeah. And
I think kids actually want those kind of foods, and the parents tell them no.
Right. So so buy them for your grandkids. If you're a grandparent, and you're like, oh, I can't control what my kid gets fed or my grandchildren get fed because my kids are feeding them. Well, buy it for your grandkids, and maybe your grandkids will start asking their parents to feed them these superhero foods. It's like,
and it's
TV
hard, like when you
them.
haven't started out in this way with your children and you've gone the route of the kid foods, it's really, really hard, especially when your kids are older. I've been trying to just be that, voice of reason and give them the education. They overhear a lot of stuff that I'm talking about. They see what I'm doing, and they see how it makes me feel, and that really helps them.
Yeah. Oh, so Amy says this is don't tell Dr. Berry yet. No, I'm sure he's not listening. And yeah.
Well, it's not like I've got his phone number.
Yeah, if he's listening, that's pretty incredible. But no.
Yeah, I would be happy about that. I'd be like, okay.
He's definitely not listening.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, Dave goes, I'll send him a note. Don't send him a note. Well, Dave actually did send him one of my videos a long time ago, and he commented on it.
Yeah.
Cool.
He commented on a couple of my videos too, which I was very surprised.
Wow.
And I didn't believe it was the real Dr. Berry at first, but it was.
That's funny. So
can I get your code? Can I get your
All
right, guys. I guess we better get off here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, y'all, and the time always goes by so quick.
Yeah, it flies.
And I just enjoy this so much.
I know. We'll see you guys next Sunday at 5 Eastern Standard Time, 3 Pacific. What is it, 4 Central?
4 Central.
And
I
shouldn't try to
actually
translate
2 o'clock
time
Pacific.
zones. Okay, 2 o'clock. Sorry. See, I shouldn't try to do that. But I always feel like I'm coming from my perspective, But yeah, so 5 Eastern, we'll say that. But anyway, we'll see you guys next week. And if you want to pop in on our ketogenic textbook review on Thursday at 5:30, we're going to be here for that. So we'll see y'all. Have a good week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.